Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. As you know, recently, the world just celebrated a very pivotal and very important milestone for Black American music. Hip-hop just turned 50 years old, and the music and the culture came from the Bronx here in New York City. Now, over the last 50 years, hip-hop has taken on many dynamics of the music as far as clothes, how we dance, the DJ and the art of turntablism, as well as how film and video and graffiti were all part of the mix. Now during the 80s and 90s, there were films that documented the evolution of hip-hop. Movies like Wild Style, films like Beat Street, Breakin', Tougher Than Leather. But in the 90s, the movies moved more urban and more grittier. In fact, the movie Juice was a film that not only resonated in the early 90s, but it's still very relevant to this day, and it dealt with issues of coming of age, dealt with guns, dealt with gangs. The film was directed by the great Ernest Dickerson, and Ernest Dickerson hails from Newark, New Jersey. Here on the Pace Report, I wanted to dissect as well as have a reflection of the movie Juice. And I sat down with Mr. Dickerson at this year's 49th Newark Black Film Festival at the Newark Museum of Art in Newark, New Jersey. The film also is very important because the soundtrack, produced by the great Keith and Hank Shocklee, the Bomb Squad, produced some very iconic rap hip-hop tracks, including songs from Rakim, as well as Heavy D and Naughty by Nature. Tonight here on the Pace Report, I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Dickerson to, one, reflect on this film, talk about the legacy and importance of why this film is very, very important now, as well as we sit down and reflect on the legacy of the great Tupac Shakur. Now, originally, I had planned to interview as well as incorporate Mr. Khalil Kain as well as Jermaine Hopkins, two of the main actors of Juice. But the day before this event took place, the writer's strike took place. So the actors could not participate in any kind of interviews due to the restrictions to the strikes. Also included in this segment, you will see the Newark Black Film Festival acknowledge as well as give Mr. Dickerson a Lifetime Achievement Award. This gentleman was the cinematographer for Spike Lee for films like Malcolm X, Jungle Fever, Do the Right Thing, She's Gotta Have It, but he's also directed some very prolific television shows including The Wire, ER, Weeds, Dexter, Walking Dead, Treme, Law and Order. I can go on all afternoon about this man's directing credits. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Hip Hop at 50, the 30th anniversary of Juice, featuring director Ernest Dickerson, live at this year's 49th Newark Black Film Festival at the Newark Museum of Art in Newark, New Jersey, here on the Pace Report.
I graduated from NYU, got out of NYU, and had a lot of time on my hands because I was trying to find work. I was trying to figure out how to get into work as a cinematographer. And so started, thinking, well, maybe I should write a script. So I wrote the first draft, Gerard wrote the second draft. Together we did the third draft to make it into the movie we wanted to make it into. And I had been friends with Gerard, since Howard. So that's how we put it together. And then it wound up sitting on the shelf for like 8-9 years.
What was the year? So let's see, 1993. 1993 was so that was
Juice came out in 92.
92. So we're going all the way back to like 1980, 84, 85.
No, 80. We wrote it around 81. Yeah, we wrote Juice around 1981.
And it predates the idea of the Hood movie.
Yeah. I wanted to do a thriller. I wanted to do a thriller with young African-American guys, 16, 17 years old. I wanted to be a film noir. I thought it was, an interesting idea for a film. Kids can get into all, excuse my French, kids can get into all kinds of shit.
Of course.
And that was the idea, to have these young kids that were.
We are at a very, very pivotal part of American history.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and this is the 30th anniversary of Juice. This was your breakout film.
As a director. Yeah.
As a director, yeah. Tell me how this story came about.
Well, it started years earlier when I was when I was still living in Washington, D.C. And, I was I had a summer job working at the post office. And riding in the mornings, I always had to check in at 6:59, before 6:59. And on the way in, I'd always see these kids on the bus, they looked like they'd been hanging out all night long. And I was just wondering what kind of stuff they got into. And I just figured, God, there's a thriller in that, a thriller with young kids that hang out all night. And so, years later, I just started working on this idea, of the idea for the thriller. I think it was probably around 1981. And my partner Gerard Brown and I wrote the script that became Juice. But nobody wanted to touch it. We couldn't get it made. Everybody said it was way too dark, and there was no way we were going to be able to get it made. Nobody wanted to see it. So it wound up sitting on the shelf for a long time. And then finally, Gerard, around 1989, 1990, started shopping around for a new agent. He found an agent that wanted to see some film work that he had contributed to or written. So he showed her Juice, and she was surprised. She said, what's going on with this? He said, nothing. Nobody wanted to touch it. It's just been sitting on the shelf for all these years. And she said that she could get it set up. So she immediately took it to a couple of production companies that wanted to buy the script. When Gerard and I wrote it, we wanted it to debut ourselves as a writer-director team. So the production companies, the one company that seemed the most serious about it, wanted to buy it, and they gave us a list of the directors, and it was a 3-page list. My name was the last name on the last page. They were looking at all these other people. They had all these casting suggestions, a lot of young black actors that had been on television and stuff like that. And then we started getting notes. And they were saying, this story's a little bit too dark. Maybe you need to really think of it more as a comedy. They wanted us to make it a comedy.
I always wanted a buffoon. Hollywood wants us to buffoon.
Yeah, they wanted us to make it into a comedic coming-of-age story set in Harlem. And Gerard and I just looked at each other and said, nah, man, it's... we had seen so many movies that had a great central idea, but you just could tell that it just got, turned into a piece of mess, through the development. Sometimes you can overdevelop an idea and you get too many executives putting in their ideas and it just ruins everything. So we said, thank you, but no thank you. We took the script away. We could have made money, but Gerard was doing okay. He was a playwright in residence at Joe Papp's Public Theater. My career as a cinematographer was taking off, was doing pretty good, so I was all right. And then I got this phone call out of the blue, this young Englishman who was looking to produce his first film. And his name was David Heyman, and he was partnered with a couple of other guys, and they were looking for their first film. And he asked me how I wanted to make the movie, and I told him, I said, it's got to be raw, it's got to be real. Can't be shot in a studio, it's got to be on location. And there's nobody we know that can play these roles. We got to go after unknowns. And so he said he liked what I had to say about that, and started getting it into production. He gave us we made it for $3 million.
What's really interesting about this time, Ernest, as hip hop was becoming the dominant music in popular American culture, the movies that represented the time. In fact, you were the cinematographer on Crush Groove with
Michael Schultz.
Michael Schultz. And the movies kind of reflected the raw and the urban grit of how the music permeated through the ghetto, through New York City. Crush Groove, Beat Street, Wild Style, Run DMC's movie Tougher Than Leather. Then the 90s segued into a new form of film, and two of the directors that kind of broke ground was Boys in the Hood, John Singleton, and then there was the Menace to Society, the Hughes brothers. They moved into these urban stories, these real life stories. And Juice came in at a time when the new black cinema came into fold. In hip hop, the music was also embodied with the storylines. How did you incorporate the Shocklee brothers into this production?
Well, I was a big fan of Public Enemy, and I thought it was too easy to go for Public Enemy to do the score. I wanted the mastermind behind their sound to do the score for the film. And I've always been a fan of non-traditional instrumentation in film scores. Like the Italian westerns that Ennio Morricone did. He was an experimental musician, and he put a lot of his experimental musical ideas into the scores for the Good, Bad, and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and really came up with some really interesting musical pieces and some other Italian western films that he did. So I wanted something different. I didn't want to go for anything symphonic. I wanted to go for something that was raw and grittier. And so I contacted Hank Shocklee, and he was down. I'd already met PE, because I did Do the Right Thing, and then we shot the music video,
Fight the Power.
The Fight the Power video. So knew them from that and everything. But I wanted that brain behind the music behind Public Enemy, and so that's how we got it.
Ernest, you have to realize the soundtrack spawned 3 iconic hip hop classic songs.
Yeah, well, Hank was really cool in really helping us get people to come in and do that. We knew we wanted some music, so I think once we brought Hank on board, Hank and Keith, I think that that maybe increased our street cred a little bit. When people say, "Oh, okay, maybe we'll work with this guy." So I think that's why it has lasted for so long. I'm really surprised. When it came out on Blu-ray a couple of years ago, my wife spent 5 years trying to find the rights to get it made, redone on Blu-ray. And then when it finally did, Paramount was really surprised because it wound up making more money than the Blu-ray remaster of Saturday Night Fever.
Wow. And I think, moving into my next question, we have to talk about the story, because this was the very first time I'd ever seen a story about friends who were very, very tight, but one specific incident changes the dynamic between all 4 friends. Q wants to move in another direction. He's maturing. And Bishop is moving into another direction, bipolar opposite. And I think the key elements was that, 1, the casting, which we'll get into in just a second, but 2, the storyline. How did you really get these actors to convey what was really going on?
Well, they were young pros, they were young, untested pros. The only person that had any kind of film experience before that was Jermaine Hopkins. Jermaine had been in Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman, and then I had met Jermaine on a pilot for a TV series that I photographed as a director of photography, And I met him. He was this young, funny kid that was from Newark, so he was a homeboy. So when he came in to audition, he was a little bit different than the Steele in the script that we had written, because Steele was supposed to be kind of like the young, skinny, quote unquote weakest member of the bunch, but his name shows the hidden strength that he does have, because he survives the shooting,
Right.
So Steele, So.
85 to 90% of directing is casting, because you get the right person to play the role. You don't really have to do anything. They know what to do. They know who that character is. They know what that character's motivations are and what they might say. So sometimes you get the right person. All you got to do is a little nudge here, a little nudge there to make minor adjustments. But yeah.
Gorgeous.
I mean, casting. That's, I think, why Juice is so successful, because casting Juice was rough. It took a long time. And then even then, I narrowed it down to 12 of you guys, 12 actors, and I had to find the right 4 guys that together would create a 5th character, which was like the group mind, the crew mind, and just having these guys, bouncing, mixing and matching. That's how I came up with the 4 guys that we had in the movie.
Gorgeous.
Where did the inspiration for Juice come from?
I think it first hit me, after my first year at Howard University, I had a summer job working at the post office.
Okay.
And you always had to check in at 6:59, before 6:59 a.m. So I'm taking the bus in before the sun comes up. And I used to, on the bus in DC, I used to see kids hanging out on the bus. They looked like they had been out all night long, doing, getting into who knows what kind of adventures or whatever. And so I always thought there was a film there. One of my favorite books growing up was Man, Child of the Promised Land. And I always wanted to make a film version of that. With young Claude Brown talking about how he used to hang out with his friends for days at a time. And then, growing up in Newark, whenever I left the house, my mother never knew what I was doing. And as a kid, you have adventures, for want of a better term. But, I graduated from NYU, got out of NYU, and, had a lot of time on my hands because I was trying to find work. I was trying to figure out how to get into work as a cinematographer.
Money B from Digital Underground auditioned for Bishop's part.
A lot of people did.
Tretch also. The gentleman from, oh my goodness,
Actually,
Clueless. There were quite a few people, like you said, that auditioned.
Jeffrey Wright told me he auditioned too, and I kind of vaguely remember Jeffrey
Wow.
coming in and auditioning. He told me he did when I met with him. He said, "Yeah, I auditioned for you." I said, "Really?" We were looking at a lot of people. Jackie Brown Carmen was my casting director, and I asked her. I said, "Go to high schools of the performing arts. Go to neighborhood theater groups, school theater groups, church theater groups, and so she actually looked at hundreds and hundreds of folks and then started narrowing them down, because I think we actually wound up with 12 guys that I started doing mixing and matching, because the key for me was that the 4 guys together had to create a 5th character, which was like the group mind. They had to be, we had to believe that those guys had been together, for most of their life, and that they were thinking alike, and they used to do things together, but Q was starting to, branch off into, his interest, which was music, which, was the reason I made him a scratch and mix artist was for two reasons. I didn't want to have to make him a rapper and have to write rap, you know. But I was really fascinated with scratching and mixing as a musical art form. I thought, you know, to me it was like just as I said, non-traditional instrumentation. You know, using turntables as a musical instrument. I thought, you know, it was, excuse my French, but pretty fucking brilliant.
It was.
You know, so I was really fascinated with that, and I wanted to make him, and that's why I gave him that skill, you know, that he was developing it.
There's some people here who contributed to the film you just saw, who I think I'd like to acknowledge. Mr. Khalil Kain. Mr. Jermaine Hopkins. Greg. Who else is here? Eric Payne, my cousin. You know, we had originally hoped to have everybody come up so we could do a Q&A, but we are in the middle of a strike. And to protect my friends, you know, we had to not do that. I mean, you know, but like I said, I'm lucky that I've been able to make a living, and that's what this strike is all about. You know, it's a job. You should be able to make a living at it, and that's what a lot of executives who make $25 million a year refuse to understand, and that's why we're fighting. And you know, it's tough. Do you know what they want to do? You know, it's you know, for young actors, sometimes being background, you know, sometimes being an extra, is your way of getting on set and doing it. And that's how you meet people. You meet other folks who are able to, like, you know, get more work out of that. What the executives want to do now, they want to pay actors 1 day's wages. Background. They want to pay them 1 day's wages to do digital scans of them, to put in a library, so that they can use them anytime they want to without giving them any further compensation. That's slavery. So, yeah, would the money folks like to bring back slavery? Yeah, I think so. The reason that the directors didn't get it, because they haven't figured out how to mess with us yet. But they're going to try. But really want to honor the actors and the writers, and we give them our full support. And I just want to thank everybody for coming here and supporting our little movie.
Got one more
Uh-oh.
special. This is from the United States House of Representatives. Donald M. Payne Jr., Member of Congress, 10th Congressional District of New Jersey. He has asked that we present to you a United States Congress Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition. Presented to Ernest R. Dickerson on the occasion of your classic film, Juice, being selected and screened at the Newark Black Film Festival. I recognize you for your love and dedication as a director and cinematographer. Your efforts as an artist are an inspiring testament to a life dedicated to spreading your love of film. As a Newark native, I am proud to recognize all your achievements in the film industry. Our community is grateful for your generous contribution of time, talent, and dedication to enhance the creative knowledge of your fellow artists. Donald M. Payne, Jr., Member of Congress, 10th Congressional District of New Jersey, dated July 15, 2023.
Wow. I wasn't expecting all this. Wow. Congress, jeez. Yeah.
You coming at you from all directions?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be back in Newark. I actually drove by my old home, Sepulveda Terrace. What used to be Sepulveda Terrace. Now it's just like a flat dirt yard. I understand they're going to put a Lionsgate studio.
Lionsgate, yeah.
And that's where I first started really, you know.
Right, Newark. Right,
That's where I first started loving film. And I have to thank, you know, my mother. You know, my mother is a Juice. She had recently retired from the Newark Public Library. And actually she had a day working as an extra on Jungle Fever. So that was her first day on set, you know, she loved it. Because she was trying to figure out, you know, she's retired. She didn't want to just like sit at home. So so she said, well, how do I get to the, I like this, you know, how do I get to do this more often? And I said, well, Mom, you gotta get a SAG card. She said, well, how am I gonna get a SAG card? I said, well, you gotta be in a movie. Well, how am I gonna be in a movie? I don't know, Mom, I don't know. So, when we were preparing Juice, the character of Sweet was actually written for a man. And you know, sometimes the best ideas come in the shower, at least for me, in the shower. And I said, well, wait a minute, you know, my mom knew a lot of OGs here in Newark. I think she can do it. And she practiced. She practiced it. And she got her SAG card. And every time I got a movie, you know, she said, what's my role? I said, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. She said, now remember, Marty Scorsese always puts his mother and his father in his role. I said, I'll figure something out. But I loved it because she always used to go with my Aunt Goldie. And they'd go to they'd always go to like screenings, SAG screenings, you know. They could go see the new movie that was coming out at a screening. And they do that. I'll go over to New York and have dinner and stuff. So she really loved that. So I'm glad I was able to immortalize my mom in cinema. And so, yeah. I don't know what else to say. Thank you so much. This means so much to me. It's great to come home.
Great to have you here.
And great to see my family. My family.
We love you.
Love you back, Your Honor. That's my cousin, Rashid, who became the first African-American Muslim Superior Court judge in New Jersey. My family, and then my wife is down front. My My partner. That's my partner. That's my partner. So this, you know, just so happy to see everybody here. Thank you for coming out.
What about Tupac Shakur? Because this movie not only put you on the map as a director, your first film out the gate, but this film, when you look at this movie now, Omar Epps and Tupac Shakur carried this film. How did the chemistry between you and those actors, were there some things that you wanted from them, or did you just let the camera roll and let them do what they do?
Well, they had to stick to the script. Sometimes I let them improvise, provided that the lines said what was required for the script to be said in the script. You know, if they had to change their own lines. But that was part of the mixing and matching. Part of the mixing and matching was, you know, was trying different combinations of the four guys, and these four guys were the ones that really hit it off. You know, they really bounced off each other in a very naturalistic way, and I already had an idea who I felt my Q was. I already had an idea who I felt my Rakim was. You know, because Khalil was the oldest. And he just had that gravitas of a leader, you know, so I wanted him to be the leader of the bunch. How I found Tupac was he came in with Tretch. Tretch came in to read and did, you know, a pretty good job, and I think he was part of the mixing and matching also, but he had this guy who was hanging out with him. And a lot of brothers were coming in and just going ballistic and thinking that that's, all I gotta do is, you know, be ballistic and, you know, that would get me the role. But Tupac came in and we found out later on that he was a trained actor and very perceptive. And he knew that the pain, that there's pain in Bishop, that the anger comes from pain. And there's that vulnerability there. And that's the thing that Tupac understood when he came in to audition for the role. So that's why he got it, you know. And he just did a brilliant job with it.
Ernest, he was cold the whole entire, even as he tried to explain the heist, there was a seriousness. It's like, this is it, or if not, this is not going to be it. And we find out at the end of the film that it's not going to be it. There was a sincerity, and there was also a seriousness to Bishop throughout the whole film.
Yeah, and it's something that carries into his death scene, because I don't know if you've seen the DVD, the Blu-ray that was released 5 years ago, but it has my original ending in there. The ending that's in the film now is not my original ending. It's not the ending that we wrote.
Really?
No, it's not the same ending. As it is right now, it seems like that when he goes over the edge of the roof and Q is trying to hold on to him, it looks like slips out of Q's hands and falls. The way we shot it is that he goes over the edge, he's holding on, and he's saying, "Don't let go, don't let go." And Q is trying to pull him up. Then you hear the police sirens coming. And all of a sudden he just like kind of relaxes a little bit, and he looks at Q and says, "I'm not going to jail." And he lets go of Q's hand. That's the way it wrote, because we wanted to show that he was that serious, that he was that committed, you know, to whatever it was he was trying to do. He said, he's not letting go. And when he fell, he didn't scream. He just fell silently into the abyss.
How did the studio?
The studio felt that they didn't think it was right that the quote-unquote bad guy got to decide how he was going to go out. But to me, that was the strongest part of it. You know, that showed that, you know, he was serious. That this was a frame of mind, you know, way of thinking that had to be seriously dealt with. Because yeah, you know, I've met a lot of young brothers that, you know, you say, so what do you think you're gonna be doing in 10 years? And I say, I'm not gonna be alive in 10 years. I've met a lot of guys that said that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not gonna be here in 10 years, I'm gonna be dead in 10 years. You know, and I'm sure that Bishop probably had that same kind of a mindset. That he was gonna go out, he said, you gotta go out in a blaze of glory. After they got through watching the James Cagney movie, White Heat.
Right.
He said, you gotta go out in a blaze of glory, you know, and that's what he was ready to do.
And I'm listening to what you're telling me, and I'm looking at some of the most iconic movies where the villain vehemently gets plastered. Look at Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Set It Off. Scarface. You know, it's like you knew how they were going to end, but they did not want you to dictate how they were. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's my first film. I was trying to get support wherever I could. You know, it was my first film as a director. It was my producer's first film as producers. Paramount Pictures. We made it independently. It was what's called a negative pickup, where you do the movie and then a studio picks it up and they ask for some changes. And Paramount picked it up. And you know, they sold it. It made a lot of money. It did very, very. I think it was the third most profitable film that year. And but they, you know, they had these test screenings, and you know, people were upset that Q didn't just shoot Bishop, and the fact that Bishop decided how he was going to go out, they thought was a little bit too dark for them. It was too dark. They said the villain, or the quote, because I don't consider Bishop a villain, but they said the quote unquote villain should not decide how he's going to go out. And so so what happened was that I had to recut it. And even when Tupac came in to do the ADR, the dubbing afterwards, and he saw the editing, he said, what the fuck happened? I told him. And I said, so just do me a favor, man, because I'm hoping one day I can change it and put it back the way it's supposed to be. So just give me a half-ass scream when you fall. you know, just give me a half-ass scream. You know, don't try and give me a great scream, man, because, you know, so that's what he did. And, but what happened was that my wife really, she tried to get the DVD, the Blu-ray. It was out on DVD, but it wasn't out on Blu-ray. She tried to get the Blu-ray done for the 20th anniversary, but she had to find out where the rights went. Paramount was the original release company, but then she found out that the video rights had gone to Warner Brothers. So by the time she got Warner Brothers, by the time they answered her, you know, and you know, answered her questioning, she found out that the video rights had gone on to MGM. So then she had to go after MGM. By the time she went out to MGM, and that took a long, it's talking about a 5-year journey. So it wound up being the 25th anniversary. It took her 5 years. You know, my baby was at it. She was pushing. And she found some sisters at Paramount Home Video, because she found out that after MGM, it went back to Paramount, which was really great because they went into their vaults and they found a lot of the behind the scenes footage that we shot, you know, that had not been seen since the film came out in 1992. So they found all the behind the scenes footage, and they found the cut of my original ending.
Wow.
So it's on the Blu-ray.
This movie had a lot of up and coming. Samuel L. Jackson, his wife LaTanya Richardson, Flex, Queen Latifah,
and the lady who played Khalil Kain's mother was Michael Schultz's wife.
Wow.
She was kind of like the acting coach for the boys.
Wow.
Yeah, she worked with them.
Is Cool World in 1960 talked about violence and the corrosive effects of life in the inner city, and young black males trying to develop a sense of purpose and identity, Um, uh, and just to think, you know, Ronnie then went to Education of Sonny Carson, which talked about some of the same things. And then he shows up, you know, wow, I think about 15 years later.
Yeah, Education of Sonny Carson really made me, you know, at that time I was really, you know, really thinking about, you know, how to turn Man Child in the Promised Land into a film. And Education of Sonny Carson was a film that I thought, wow, that really kind of is in that direction. You know, it's really feeling like that's a good inspiration for it, you know.
Yeah, because I thought about that energy that Ronnie had to bring, you know, and the memories as an actor that he was bringing on the stage, having played those two roles previously, and now he's on the other side. Because in Cool World, he is brutalized by a cop right at the end of the film. And then he's playing the cop, you know, years later. A police officer of the same force. And I was thinking about, wow, man. When I see him next time, I'm going to ask him, did you bring any of that energy, any of that inspiration to it? These are the kind of things that artists work with, you know, when they're in the process of creating and developing any kind of work of art. And so, you know, my mind immediately went to, whoa, because I forgot that Ronnie was in the film.
Well, you know, I just remembered that I had met Ronnie before that. You know, before I brought him in, because I was so happy to have him in. I shot a movie called Death by Temptation that I shot right before Do the Right Thing. And Ronnie's in that. Ronnie plays one of the victims of the monster, the demonic lady.
Demonic presence.
And now I'm so happy to meet him there because I knew of him from Education of Sonny Carson.
When the movie came out and it was getting all the buzz, everyone had to see this movie. Did you ever in a million years, 30 years looking back at this, that this would become a classic?
I had not the slightest idea. The biggest shock came when my daughter Janet, when she was in high school, we were talking on the phone one day, and she just happened to mention that she and her friends had juice parties. I said, "What's a juice party?" She said, "Dad, it's where we look at your movie and we recite the dialogue." I said, "You're kidding, right?" She said, "No." She said, "I'm not the only." She said, "I got a lot of friends that do that." And then I started to find out that, whoa, because, after a while, after the movie's done, I mean, it's still hard for me to look at years later because, I'm always looking at things that I would have done a little bit differently, things that I wish I'd have done that, I shouldn't have let them talk me out of that, that kind of thing. So, it's a little hard for me to look at, but I've been totally surprised. And then, we started seeing stuff about it online, people calling it, I remember we heard some music critics call it a real hip hop classic because it is about the music, whereas, other films like Boys in the Hood, it's more about gangs. Our movie's not about gangs. It's about a crew, 4 kids. Right. They're not a gang, they're a crew. And, so yeah, I am surprised. Pleasantly surprised.
Right. We are at the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and like I said, these movies are part of a pantheon of not just the soundtracks, but some of the vernacular stuff that we said. We talk about some of these songs. Did you think that during the second black great run of directors, you and Singleton and Spike Lee, did you think at that time that this was going to enhance and move the music and the culture forward?
Well, you always hope that, that what you do does contribute to the culture. I always do, I know Spike always does. And John, I know John did. You're hoping that your movie touches people, your movie moves people. and at least gets people talking about it. You know, you don't want folks to leave the theater and forget about it. You know, you want people to discuss it, talk about it. What did this mean? What did that scene mean? You know, when this person said that, what did they mean? You know, kind of things like that. Because I love discussing films, and you always want your film to have a life beyond the theater. So, I think we all hope for that. We're all hoping that our films impact the human condition in some way or another. The thing that's kind of horrifying for me is that Juice was done in '92, but guns are more of a problem now than they were back then.
Right.
And Gerard and I wrote the script partly because, we were horrified at how guns were starting to come into like everything. There wasn't so much of a proliferation of guns back then, but now it's like, this shooting range that America has become.
The scene where Bishop and Q are in the elevator, and there's this 10 seconds of silence, and they're looking at each other, and Q has the balls, and he says, "You shoot me now?
You gonna shoot me in an elevator?
You gonna shoot me in the elevator?" And then when they get out of the elevator, the gun, we see that,
and we see where it goes.
We see where it goes.
Yeah.
You're right. Guns have.
Yeah. I wrote that scene because it was like in an elevator. Okay, boom, he jumps in. Okay, I haven't actually seen a shootout in an elevator, so I said, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So no, the guys did a great job. I'm proud of all of them. They were really good brothers. They were. First of all, you really felt that they had been friends for a long time. And they still stay in touch with each other.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting at this year's 49th Newark Black Film Festival at the Newark Museum of Art in Newark, New Jersey. I'd like to personally congratulate the incomparable Ernest Dickerson. Congratulations on your body of work, and congratulations on the 30th anniversary of Juice. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management at the Newark Museum of Art for arranging my time with Mr. Dickerson, as well as their warm hospitality. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like and share and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, and leave comments, as well as follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.